Let's go ahead and work through this evolutionary tree. So of course in front of you, you guys should all have your 9 organisms, your hypothetical organisms that we're going to try to construct a phylogeny or an evolutionary tree for. So the first thing that of course you need to do is make a character matrix. So on the other sheet here, what we have is we have a basic character matrix that goes through some of the differences between those 9 organisms. And if you take a good look at the original paper, as shown here, you'll see that we've already outlined who the ancestor is. So let's actually go through some of these and see if we can figure out how to map the character matrix. So over here we have pairs of legs. So on pairs of legs, this is really asking how many pairs of legs do we see? And you can see I've actually filled in one of them for you for H, which is 3 pairs of legs. So our choices are going to be 0 pairs of legs, 2 pairs, or 3 pairs. So let's go ahead and take a look. If we take a look at A here, you can see that there's 3 pairs of legs. 1, 2, 3. B has 2 pairs. C has 2 pairs. D has 2 pairs. E has 3 pairs. F has 2 pairs. And of course, the ancestor has 0. H has 3 and G has 0. So let's go ahead and fill that in. So the ancestor has 0. A has 3. B has 2. C has 2. D has 2. E has 3, F has 2, G has 0, and we already know H has 3. So that's basically how you're going to fill in these character matrices. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and we'll go through the other ones, and we'll take a look at what they are, and then I'm going to ask you to pause the video and take some time to try to look at your own paper and fill out the matrix. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with the eyebrows. B, for example, has eyebrows. They're right there. So those are the eyebrows, where you can see A does not. So for the eyebrow category, you're going to want to go ahead and take a look at all of these and determine if they have eyebrows or not. Going back over, the next one is going to be pinchers. Now the pinchers are going to be these guys right up here. So if you see the pinchers that are kind of coming off the mouthpiece, we would say yes, they have pinchers, where for example, B does not have pinchers. A has pinchers. The next one over is going to be the eyelashes. So the eyelashes, of course, come off the eyes. So let's take a look at what they are. The eyelashes are shown here on C. You can see we've got a pair of eyelashes here, a pair of eyelashes here. So we would say, for example, that C has eyelashes. Coming down, you can see the eyelashes are also there for F, where they are not there for E. So that'll give you a clue as to how to map eyelashes. Then coming back over, we'll take a look at the antenna. The antennae are going to be these protrusions right here, these appendages. Of course, they look like antenna. So anytime you see any 2 rods kind of coming out a little bit past the eyes, those are going to be the antenna. And a quick survey will show that actually almost all of these organisms have antenna, except the ancestor. The ancestor lacks antenna. Another similar character is going to be whether or not they have antenna balls, and those are going to be these little round balls that are going to be at the tips of the antenna if they have them. So let's see if we see those. Let's take a look at D and E here. D, of course, does not have anything at the tips of their antenna, but if you go over to E, they have something at the tips of their antenna. So you're going to say yes if they do have antenna balls, or no or negative if they do not. Finally, we take a look at the dorsal line. Now, the dorsal area is going to be along the back, so we'll look for a line along the back. And of course, you can already see just in this first row that one organism has a pretty striking line along the back, and that would be B. So this right here is going to be your dorsal line. So B has a dorsal line where A and C do not. Moving over to tail, we're going to be looking for the presence of a tail. So as it turns out, as I scan, I don't really see a tail in any of these. So we'll go down, and then finally, I see a tail right there. So for example, F has a tail where E does not. Now finally we have eye shade, and we'll do star rear at the same time, so take a look at both of those. For the eye shade, we actually don't have a plus or minus. It's whether or not their eyes are dark or whether or not they're light. And for the little star that's on the bottom of these organisms or along the rear, we have either they have it or they don't. So the first thing we'll do is we'll take a look at eye shade. So here, for example, is where the eyes are. And what you want to do is take a look at whether or not it's dark or light. And we would say those are dark eyes. But if you go down over here to E, these are going to be light eyes, like so. So I have white and D for dark up here with A, B, and C. And then finally, the star rear, you can see right here on E, there's the little cross or star shape that's found at the rear of the organism. So E, for example, would have a star rear, as would H, where the ancestor does not, and G does not, as an example. So go ahead and pause the video and try to take a look at your matrix and your characters and see if you can finish filling in the character matrix. Welcome back. Once you've done that, you should have something that looks like this right here that I'm showing on the camera. Now, I've done mine a little differently. You might notice that mine has a lot of blank spots, and that is because that's the way I prefer to do it. It makes it actually a little easier to keep track of your different characters, especially the difference between a positive and a negative. So you can see I have the pairs of walking legs here, but then when we get down to the eyebrow, I just put a plus if they had one, and then I left it blank for the most part if they didn't. So you can see who's got pinchers, who's got eyelashes, who's got antenna, who's got antenna balls, who's got a dorsal line, etc. And you're welcome to do it this way, or you can have a complete matrix. It's just a little bit easier for me to show you how to build the tree when I don't have as much stuff on a big character matrix like this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and start building our evolutionary tree. And I'm going to help you get it started, and then I'm going to ask you to pause the video and ask you to try to finish it on your own. Okay, this is a pretty big character matrix. So in order to kind of keep track of what's what we first want to do is take a good look at the ancestor. The ancestor is going to be the outgroup in this case, and so we assume that the ancestor, which looks rather plain, is going to be the plesiomorph, in other words, the original character or character state. So if we take a good look here, we're going to go through, and I'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. The ancestor has no pairs of legs, no eyebrow, no pinchers, no eyelashes, no antenna balls, no dorsal line, no tail, dark eyes, and no star rear. So that makes it pretty simple. What we want to do now is we want to see, are there any character states that are going to be a little bit different for all other 8 organisms, A through H. And so if we start here, pairs of legs looks really tempting because you see 3, 2, 2, 2, clearly more until we get down to G. So let's make a little note that G is actually, except for G, the rest of these have pairs of legs. Not very many creatures have eyebrows. Pinchers are more common, but it's not all the way across. And of course, the first one that should strike you as a little bit interesting is going to be the antenna. So clearly, all organisms are going to have an antenna except for the ancestor. So let's go ahead and mark that off. So what we're going to do when we draw our tree, remember we start with the check mark. I'm going to draw a nice big line there. And we're going to go ahead and put our outgroup here on the far left, and that of course is going to be the ancestor. Like so. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to come down and we're going to go ahead and start drawing out our tree. Now, as I mentioned up above, the antenna is going to be the first thing that every organism has except for the ancestor. So what we're going to do is we're going to mark that as a new character state. So I'm going to put a little line there. And we have antenna. So what that tells me, remember, is that anything to the right of this is also going to have an antenna, and anything to the left, which just includes the ancestor, is not going to have an antenna. So as a cute way to kind of keep track, now that we've dealt with the antenna, we've added it into our tree, I'm going to go ahead and cross it off, like so. And that tells me I don't have to deal with this character state or character, just this general character anymore. And it makes it a little bit easier in my bookkeeping approach. Okay, so now that I've dealt with the antenna, I'm going to go back and see, is there anybody that now looks just like the ancestor? And of course, as I mentioned, G is rather suspect because of this 0. And just to kind of give you a clue, I'm going to go ahead and pull back up what G looks like. That's G. And I'm going to move them over to the ancestor. You can tell they look pretty similar, so we're probably on the right track with G here. So let's take a good look. The ancestor has 0 pairs of legs, G has 0 pairs of legs. The ancestor doesn't have an eyebrow, G doesn't have an eyebrow. Keep doing that all the way across until you might see a difference. Of course, we're going to skip over the antenna. We've already done that. And I keep moving, and in fact, I come across my first and only difference. The ancestor has dark eyes, and G has white eyes. Now, if G was the only one with white eyes, this would be pretty easy, but you see white up here for E, and E doesn't look anything like G along the row. So that tells me that maybe this is an example of convergent evolution, where 2 very distinct organisms actually have evolved to have the same character trait, even though they are not related to each other. So let's go ahead and actually add in the white eyes. Because white is uncommon, we're only going to see it for G, and then again here later on for E. What we're going to do is we're going to probably need to add it in 2 different times. So I'm going to go ahead and draw another line here. I'm going to go ahead and put G at the top. So there's my organism G, but I need to account for the fact that G has white eyes. Like so. Okay, so that actually helps me with G. So what I would do now, again, as part of the bookkeeping, is I'm going to go ahead and cross off G. So keep crossing all the way off so that you don't have to worry about dealing with G anymore. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a look at another character that might be different from the ancestor. And of course, now I see pairs of legs is showing up, where every single organism left in my table is going to have 2 or more pairs of legs. Now, you notice some of them have 2 and some of them have 3. I'm going to make a guess here and say that 2 pairs of legs came up before 3, usually because the more you have of something, the more recently evolved it is. So I would guess that 2 is going to be derived a little bit earlier than 3 is. Let's see what else we have, if anything. I see lots of stuff with pinchers, but it's not all of them. So I keep moving, I keep moving, I keep moving, and I really don't see anything else. So that means the next thing I'm going to have to deal with is going to be these pairs of legs. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look, and I'm going to make a stab here that 2 pairs of legs is going to come before 3, and I'm going to mark who's got 2 pairs of legs. So I'm just going to use a little purple marker here to show B does, C does, D, and F. So I have 4 organisms with 2 pairs of legs. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come back down to my tree, and I'm going to put 2 pairs of legs. All right, the next thing that I want to do is I want to take a look and see, now that I'm basically highlighting B, C, D, and F. And what I want to know is, do any of those actually look more like the ancestor now if I ignore the pairs of legs? So let's see, it's not going to be B because B has an eyebrow and the ancestor does not. But I notice here that I've got C, D, and F are going to be the same. So I'll just make little checks right there to kind of show, yeah, they're the same. Then I come over to the pinchers, and actually I notice that B doesn't have pinchers and D doesn't have pinchers. just like the ancestor, whereas C and F definitely do. So that's kind of interesting. The eyelashes, I noticed that B is the same. I noticed that D is the same. And again, we're just the same as the ancestor. We've already dealt with antenna. The antenna balls, well, of course, they're all the same here, so nothing new is going on there. We go down to the dorsal line. We go to the tail. Most of them are new. The dark eyes, of course, are all the same, and the star rear is going to be all of the same as well. So now that I've done that, I've kind of marked who's the same as the ancestor. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and go through and see who's got the most checks at this point. In other words, who's the most similar. And as I go through this, I notice that I've probably got two that are going to be rather interesting, and those are D and B both. So let's go take a look at D and B. So at this point, I'm going to focus my efforts on these two. Okay, so let's take a good look. So what you maybe want to do, actually, to make it easier, is to redraw your character tree and just add the ancestor B and D, and just make a reduced one to really see the differences. And sometimes when there's too much stuff going on, it's a little difficult to see the trends. All right, so B is going to have 2, D is going to have 2. We already counted for pairs of legs. B has an eyebrow. D does not, but B is the only one with an eyebrow, so I'm not going to worry about that right now, as you'll see. They both don't have pinchers. We're good there. They both don't have eyelashes. They both don't have antenna balls. Here's where they're different. They both have a dorsal line where the ancestor does not, but they're the only ones. So I'm guessing that D and B are going to be pretty related to each other, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come down over here, and I'm going to draw one additional line like this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the dorsal line in there. And notice I put it up here and not down here because the dorsal line is only shared by B and D. And I know that I'm going to have a branch that goes off of both of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to branch it off like that. And I'm going to put D on one node and B on the other. So in order to figure out which one goes where, we actually need to kind of come back and take a look. Notice we've just dealt with the dorsal line, so we're going to go ahead and do bookkeeping and get rid of that. Because there were only 2 that had differences, and we've already accounted for it. Keep moving, the tail is the same, the eye shade is the same, there's no star rear, that's all the same. So now the only one that's different is going to be B with this eyebrow here. So let's go ahead and take care of that. We'll come down here, we'll say dorsal line, I'll keep going up, and I'll go ahead and put D there. So that means that D is just like the ancestor, except it has an antenna, 2 pairs of legs, and a dorsal line. Now B is also just like the ancestor, except for the fact that it also has an eyebrow. So you have to put the eyebrow right there, as shown right there. Okay, that allows us to come back up and do some more bookkeeping. The eyebrow is gone because we have already dealt with it, and D and B are gone as well. All right, so this is what we have left. Now at this point, you can probably see where there's some new changes here with the pinchers, but I'm going to go ahead and let you try this on your own. Now that I've got it started for you, see if you can finish the evolutionary tree for A, C, E, F, and H. So go ahead and pause the video and give it your best shot. All right, if you've given it a shot, let me go ahead and show you the final product. This is where we left off. We're going to add the pinchers in here, the eyelashes, the tails, and we have C and F. We come down here and we actually add in the antenna balls. We also add in 3 pairs of legs. Then we get A. We add in the star rear, we get H, and finally we add in the white eyes one more time and we get E. So you should have something that resembles this, and then you're finished. Thanks.